RAGT23, and my friend Marcie, who's been a friend, I don't know how many years now, Marcie, do you know?
I was 5 when it started,
You were
I think.
5?
Yeah, when I met you, yeah.
No, that's not true.
It's not right, I know.
She's been a friend a long time. She's going to interview you with some fun questions, some that readers supplied and some that Marcie has supplied.
Some that I wrote. So I guess let's get started, huh?
Go, Marcie.
All right, so first off, let's talk about BRAY, which
Okay.
is your new benefit book
New
that's
benefit
just
book.
come out this year in
Yep.
June. Well,
Yep.
we are in June. So can you give us a brief rundown of what the book is about?
No, you know I can't.
Okay, so this book is
All
about...
right. So it's sort of a spin-off of my Ultimate series.
Mhm.
So this is the part I do remember. You guys have to remember, I write a lot of books, and once I move on, I know the book I'm working on, which I do know that book, but I don't know so much the books. I don't remember the finer points. But BRAY was introduced in Army's book from the
Mhm.
Ultimate series, Fighting Dirty. And I'm pulling all kind of facts out of my
That-
head.
You
It
read
was-
my mind.
Is that what it was? Osmosis, you said
You
it
did.
so he was a mistreated child, and Army helped him, and he did not like the foster care system because they always ended up sending him back to his mom. But Army said, I'm gonna do what I can to make sure this works out for you, and he did. And now BRAY is a grown man who's very sympathetic to other people with problems, and he's written he did not write his own story. He's living his
He's
own
living
story.
his life.
Yeah. And the fun thing about those particular books is that my publisher does a special contract, so all the advance and all the royalties for the lifetime of the books go to the Animal Adoption Foundation.
That's fabulous, I think.
Yeah, it's fun.
So-
Because we're all animal lovers, right?
We are, definitely. So you touched base on the fact that it came from the Ultimate series, Fighting Dirty. So, and last year's book was Marcus, which I believe was part of Love Undercover.
Correct.
So what about, and then Colt, we can't forget Colt from the Guthrie brothers. So what about, well, yeah. So have you considered any other secondary characters from your other series? You had Body Armor, you had Road to Love, Men on the Edge of Honor, like maybe Jackson Saver. Did he ever have children with his woman?
I don't think so.
We don't.
I don't remember.
They're in
I don't
hiding
know what
right
Jackson's
now.
up to now.
But-
I ended that book, and whatever he's doing
And Jackson
now, I
went
don't
on.
know. Yeah.
Okay. So do you think you'll have plans to even bring them back in some fashion?
So I always wait to see who readers are asking for, because when readers start asking for characters, then my brain starts
Mhm.
ticking. And one of those characters was Alice, who was in that Men Who Walk the Edge of Honor
Yes.
series. Was it?
Trace?
Yes, she was in Trace's book,
Trace,
yeah.
yeah.
And everybody kept saying, whatever happened with Alice? Well, I ended the book, so I don't know what happened with Alice. She was just a secondary. When you say a throwaway character, it just means a character that you weren't intending to have a
Mhm.
big role. But then once that reader said that, then I started thinking, what is going on with Alice?
Yeah.
And then so even though I was writing a book and editing another book and promoting another book, Alice sort of hung around, and then she showed up in the Love Undercover series. So when readers put little nuggets in my head, then I start thinking about things. Right now, the next benefit books I'd like to do, BRAY has a series of friends.
Mhm.
Marcus and BRAY were friends, and I introduced 2 other guys, Ford and Knox. Is that correct?
That is correct, because you just, there was more
So many characters
osmosis.
in my head.
Because
Yes.
that was a question, more osmosis
Thank
going on
you.
there.
So I'm hoping I can do stories for them. But as Brian and I were just saying, the publishing industry is very different
Mhm.
right now. It's going through some big shifts. So we'll see how it works out. I'm hoping we'll get
Well,
some
fingers crossed, because we,
Yes,
we
thank you.
definitely need Ford and Knox. If you're giving us Marcus and
I
Bray,
know.
we're going to need
I'm
them.
just not quite sure in what way they'll
Yeah.
come around. But yeah, once I have to write something, I have to write it, and I have to write them.
Well, you have a year
Yeah.
before the next one comes out.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so our next question, we're going to shift gears and we're going to talk about your new release, the Little the Little Flower Shop.
Yeah.
You're welcome. I even stumbled on it, so this one question I thought was fabulous. Is there a time? Well, hold on. I'm sorry. Will there be more books set in cemetery?
So again, I would like to. Well, yeah, there will be, because I'm writing
Mhm.
one right now. So
Okay.
I'm about halfway through one right now. Beyond that, I don't know yet.
Okay.
We're working on contracts, but yes, so there will be, because I very much enjoyed that town. I really like writing my harder edged books with my kick-ass heroes and danger and a little more sex. But they wanted me to do those too, and I sort of went resisting, but I'm sort of enjoying it now. So I wouldn't write a book I didn't enjoy, so I shouldn't say it that way. I'm saying I'm getting in a groove where I'm really having lots of fun with it now.
And it's like you're invested because you have Betty, and of course, wonderful Kathleen.
Betty's an older, she's old. I was just saying,
yes.
You always worry about offending somebody. Somebody Betty's age will say, I'm not old. Yeah, you are. You're in your mid-80s.
I think Betty would admit that she's old.
Betty knows she's old.
Even though she's a social, I might have spoiler alert.
She's the matriarch.
She is.
Of the whole town. And so, yeah, she's going through a lot of growth through each book. So the books aren't really about Betty, but Betty's going through a lot of growth. And actually, Kathleen, that mannequin, is too. The book I'm writing now, so if anyone doesn't know, Kathleen is a mannequin that shows up in the books. And in the first 2 books, everybody loves her and thinks she's loads of fun. And the 3rd book, she creeps the guy out. He does not like her. Every time she turns around, she's there. And he's not digging it at all. He just really is like, why is this mannequin always behind me? So, and he doesn't like how people talk about her as if she's real. You know, who left Kathleen over here?
I think it's her eyes that probably make people
she
go
does
like, whoa, what's going on here?
So, so Kathleen's going through a little bit of a fun time right now in the book I'm writing also.
So how did Kathleen come to be?
So I live in this little small town, which has its, well, you can probably tell because I write a lot of small town books. It has its perks and it has its drawbacks. And one of the drawbacks are the Facebook neighborhood loops. Oh my goodness. The things that show up on there, there's always somebody who's praying for somebody, and there's always someone who's cussing somebody, and then there's a whole lot of stuff in between. And no one's ever really knows what's going on. So one day someone was complaining, somebody was advertising a sports store that opened up, and someone said, well, I don't like that place because that person's always out front hanging out by the dumpster. And I'm like, oh, there's someone in our little town hanging out by a dumpster. So I was all intrigued. So I'm like, I never comment on these loops, but I was feverishly reading to see who this person was. Well, someone else said, she's always out there drinking, and someone said, oh, you got a cigarette in your hand. And they couldn't find out it's a mannequin. And they were just, someone threw it out. Someone didn't like that it was thrown out, so they got it out and stood it up, and then someone didn't like it was naked, so they put clothes on it. So I thought, oh, this is just too fun. This is way too fun. And then in that book, there's also an older couple, Mabel and Sullivan. And Sullivan's legally blind. And a reader gave me this idea because she said her uncle was legally blind, but his wife still makes him get up on stools and catch bugs. And so that happens in the book because I would totally tell Alan, a little more to your left, because I don't touch bugs. Right? So,
I thought that was a little bit of real life there when I read that scene. I'm like, is that really Alan getting that stink bug?
Oh, I swear, Alan got home one day and he made us French toast. And then I saw there was we sort of live in the nature area, and stink bugs get all over the place. I hate those things. They're so creepy. And I'm like, oh my God, there's a stink bug in there. And he said, I just sat down to eat. My food's hot. And I'm like, but there's a stink bug. And he's like, I'll get it when I'm done. It might not be there when you're done. When you're done, you won't know where it is.
It could fly away.
So I was like, push the chair. And I'd get up and get a stink bug. It's outside. Are you happy now? Yes, thank you. Now you may eat. So, he's fond of saying, this is my number one job, which he's got a million number one jobs. And I always say, no, your number one job is removing bugs from the house. So I don't do bugs. So that's where that came from.
So is there a time of the year that you write more or better? For example, like, do spring flowers inspire you more than the winter snow?
You just like emoted that whole thing.
I love that question. I just felt the winter snow. It just needed that moment.
So, I'm one of those people, I was saying this to Brian, I write going by priorities. So I always have priorities. My priority every day is always to get so much written. But then during Christmas, there'll be a priority where this person only has this day to shop, or this grandson wants this thing and it's on sale today. So I'm juggling priorities, and I get as much written each day as I can based on what my priorities are.
And RAGT, there's probably not a lot of writing happening at the moment.
Correct. Yeah. So right before RAGT, I got line edits for the book that'll be out the end of the year. Right the day before I was due here, I got the copy edits back, and I'm like, it's not happening. Not until after the event, because I just don't have the time. So normally I would have pivoted from writing to do the copy edits and then back to that, and then an interview, and then you are all over. People traditionally published authors are usually working on 3 books at a time. So they're usually promoting one book, writing one book, and doing edits on a book. So I'm fortunate that I usually don't have very many edits, but line edits, I'm bad for repetitious words. Or I'll get a word I like and I'll use that sucker to death. So I always tell my editor, watch for those repeat words. If I use them, mark them for me. And she's really great about that.
What is that word?
It'll just like...
It can vary?
It can vary. Like if you say they sat back in the seat and then 2 seconds later, he smoothed a hand down her back and then 2 seconds later her back was hurting and I'm like, there's way too many backs in the seat. You know what I mean? So I hate when that happens. But you write 3 pages and then Alan has dinner ready. And then you come back, so for me, an hour's passed, but for readers, it's been 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So.
So what factors do you contribute to your career longevity? I mean, 1998, I believe, is when Impetuous came out.
I think it first book sold in 1996, but then it took that long to get everything done. And that was after a lot of writing and a lot of, the whole market is so different. Back then, you wrote a book and you had to print it out twice because we didn't have email. This was Stone Age.
Did you use carbon paper between the sheets when you typed?
No, I didn't.
Okay, never. Continue on with that. Sorry. I might have, but go ahead.
So you would have to print it out and then you had to have an extra copy because when you mailed it to them, that was the only copy. And if they lost it, your book was gone because we didn't have flash drives and stuff to save things. And so I would have to, it'd pay a small fortune. And we were broke back then. We were raising 3 kids and house payment and living tight and on a budget. And I was never one of those people where I was going to take from what my family had. So, I did a lot of odd and end jobs. I did house cleaning for people. I cleaned other people's toilets before I sold. That's an honorable job, by the way. So when people talk about how hard writing is, I'm like, no, this is a piece of cake compared to what I used to do. We cleaned outside of trailers to make extra money, and I babysat because you wanted money to be able to pay for these things. And then the books got sent to Canada, so that was heavy postage. Then you would literally wait 6 months to get a postcard back to say, we like this book. Do you have anything else to show us?
Well, yeah.
Which thing would you like to see? Because I want to refine this a little, And, if you had to do edits, it was on a typewriter. So I'm a really fast typer, but I'm a very slow retyper. So I, creatively typing, but when I have to retype something so that I can change something, in my first book, they say, can you move the sex scene in chapter 3 as close to the front as possible? I'm like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, somehow, I don't know. So it's been a long time. So I don't know, I think motivation, I stick to it. The more somebody would tell me I couldn't do something, the more determined I was that I would. And that's why I say now, I pushed that boulder uphill for many, many years. And now I am old and I am tired. And if it starts rolling down, I'm just going to get out of the way and just have fun and do what I do.
But if I remember right, isn't that sex scene moved from chapter 3 to chapter 1 maybe? Didn't you move it?
I moved it however far they told me to move it.
For some reason, I thought it was in 1. I could be wrong. I don't know.
That was that bizarre. I had an editor who liked her. Her name was Brenda Chin. Laura Shin, I can't remember. And then she switched departments after I had done all the edits, and then the book sat for like 6 months. And then they finally hired a new editor. So it was either Brenda Chin and then went to Laura Shin or vice versa. And I said, well, they were waiting to find a name that matched. So it was and then they finally bought it. So it was a gruelingly long wait. You always think when you get that call that they're buying a book that you'll be excited. And I was just like, well, finally, so. It was not the climactic moment you would think. It was just.
And I think everyone really wants to know about Stash and Ash.
Oh my!
You're the cats. If everyone's familiar, the ones
if anyone follows my social
if you follow her social media, there's always posts in the morning where Stash will get out and run ahead of you, and he has to have his treats on the rock by the pond.
So people know these are not my cats. These are visiting cats. So I have 3 cats that are my cats that I take to the vet, and they're all the cats are well cared for. And then one day I was feeding the fish in our pond, and Stash showed up. He just showed up. And I'm like, well, I don't know who you are, but you want a little food too? And then he showed up the next day for more food. And Stash is one of those pet me with your eyes cats, because if you go to touch him, he's going to scratch you. He scratched me so many times. Sometimes he scratches me when I haven't reached for him. I'm like, you little shit. Like he'll be walking and my husband had trails put in around, we had 10 acres and he had trails put in for me because I got bad lungs. So I need to walk to keep my lungs healthy. And I said, but I don't want to walk where people can see me because they'll want to stop and talk to me. And I don't want to talk to people. I want to talk to people when like now, as I've set up to
Now's
talk
a good
you,
time to talk,
or
yes.
when I invite you over,
yes.
Marcie, but I don't want to get, caught off guard. So he had a guy come out with this huge machine, probably scared the death out of the cats, and put trails in for me. So I've got these awesome trails now on my own property that I can walk in my house coat and rubber boots and no one sees me. And so Stash goes, a lot of times he'll walk ahead of me and then every so often he'll just turn around and smack me. I'm like, I'm right behind you and I did nothing. I did nothing to you. That's a little feral cat. And then Ash showed up, who I didn't name, Reader's name. We called Stash that because he has a mustache. And then we asked readers, if this cat hangs around, what was she name? And then they said Ash. And so they come and go, and people keep saying, those are your cats. I'm like, they're not my cats.
They're not, but...
They don't want to come in my house. They don't want anything to do with my cats. We put a shelter out there for them.
You don't think Ash is trying to worm his way in because he's getting closer to sitting on the porch? You don't think he's going to...
Ash has not been fixed yet. So
I
think Ash is just... Are these cats of yours all fixed? And I'm like, yes, they are. Keep on moseying on. So.
Move to the next house.
And I would literally have to trap him to get him fixed. So if he hangs around long enough, I might try that. But I keep thinking, what if he's someone's cat? They get their cat back in their
You're like, what the heck happened to my cat?
So I don't know. But I love all animals, so I try to take care of them as best I can.
And now we're going to flip back to some more book talk.
Okay.
So a lot of your series features brothers, hence the Osborne brothers and the Dangerous One. So, and they're either by blood or friendship. So, and the women, obviously the women they fall in love with in the book. So, but do you have any plans to write a series that focuses on just women and the men they fall in love with? Because you do write some strong, very strong kick-ass women too. Mm-hmm. For one reason I remember Dakota, and I think she was in...
Simon Says. I remember Dakota.
Yeah, and then there was the young lady who fell in love with the guy from Perfect Storm, which I cannot remember.
Arizona.
Thank you.
Oh, you picked the two states.
Like, what the heck?
2 location names. Yeah.
Well, phew, thank God.
Yeah.
But so what do you think? Will you ever do like a trilogy of women and then there are men? Or here these are all earworms for you to sit back and start taking notes.
So, it was a good thing that God saw the wisdom in giving me sons. Because I'm really close with my sisters. Mm-hmm. One sister and I hang out a lot, but we've never been girly girls. Mm-hmm. And I'm still not a girly girl. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way.
Right,
I mean that, I get male humor a lot more than I do female humor. Mm-hmm. And so do you, that's why you're a friend. And, yeah, I know. I got a few jokes I got to share later. But, people tell me I write men well, and I think it's because I raised men. So I had 3 sons, and my youngest son has 3 sons. And so that just seems to be a hard male gene in our family. My middle son, for people that don't know, had to move to South Korea and fall in love with a Korean woman and marry her to have a girl. So that's how strong the male gene is in our family. And she's adorable, and she loves hanging out with her male cousins. So, I think when the way that my muse works, when it comes up with ideas, it's generally male inspired. Like that's always the first scene I see is what the guy's wanting to do. If he's whatever he's doing, a new enterprise he's starting, or corruption he's fighting, or whatever's motivating him. It's usually from the guy's point of view. Mm-hmm.
So do you want to give us any more insights on The Dangerous One, which just came out in February?
Yes.
I mean, I know we just have, so we have BRAY that just came out in June. We had The Little Flower Shop that came out the beginning of May.
Because you're good, because I wouldn't have known, yeah.
May 9th, it was a Tuesday. I thought it was weird that it was a Tuesday. I mean, well, most books come out the end of the month, not the beginning of the month on a Tuesday.
The whole industry's changing.
That was a little weird for me.
Yeah.
What, like they did it on purpose? I know they did.
I know, I'm going to tell them. Marcie said this
Marcie
was
says
weird.
this is wrong.
Yeah.
And then Dangerous One came out the end of February. So what else can you tell us about this series?
So the Osborne brothers, Hunter was one of those, they were both wounded warriors, both of the main characters. Jody first showed up, the female character, was in the Mackenzies of Ridge Trail. She was a very, very wounded character, and she wasn't even one that readers put in my head. I knew as soon as I wrote her that I wanted, we can't really heal people in real life. We can do the best we can, but in a book I can heal people. And not through some miraculous way, but just through other people loving them and understanding them and becoming support systems and backup systems. And so I love that we can do that in our books. So as soon as I wrote Jody, who was a secondary character, but she was so broken, I wanted to fix her, so that she could be happy. So that story started percolating in my head. So that was actually a very female-driven story. That's funny, I forgot that. But I started with Jody on that one.
Mm-hmm.
And so Alan had come home and he said, I have some inspiration for you. Excuse me. And it was a woman driving, those big ride-on lawnmowers.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how that came to be, your landscaper, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like a stand-up thing. And he said, just so you know, this wasn't me angsting over this person. He said, I knew you would like this. And she was a very dainty woman on this giant lawnmower with a blonde ponytail hanging down and little short shorts and work boots. And she looked adorable. And I said, that's Jody. That's the Jody I wrote. That's what Jody will do. And so Jody had opened her own landscaping business and with help from people. But of course, wherever Jody went, she found trouble. So luckily, she also found Hunter to help her out. And then Memphis, Hunter's brother, was so inspired by the things that his brother had done, he wanted to help. So he buys a very budget campground. I don't know if you've ever gone camping. Generally, when you go camping, it's either really, really budget, or it's a really nice posh place with, like what I wrote in Cooper's Charm, where they have directors who run all kinds of fun activities for people. I always hid in the RV. I didn't want to be. That wasn't my people-y time, but so I know both sides of it. So I wanted to write the budget one where the criminals might go to make deals, because I do everything through research. So I start researching, does this happen? And it does, actually. There's a lot of crime that occurs in RV parks because it's sort of obscure in mountains and things. It's a good meeting place. Not all of them. Obviously, I've never witnessed any crime, but it happens because I can see why. It'd be a good meeting place where you can do things. There's not cops walking around,
right.
And it's just a bunch of people minding their own business at their own little RV sites. So all that worked around. And so that'll be the Fearless one. That's out the end of the year, like right after Christmas, which is really weird.
The Tuesday right after.
That weird Tuesday.
That's another weird Tuesday. Well, so what is it about? Now I'm flipping you back again. Sorry,
We're going back to the cats.
We're going to nature.
Okay.
Zen.
Yeah.
So what is it about nature that you find soothing? You mentioned walking. Now you do that for health reasons, but is there more?
Because I love it,
because it's very soothing. Is it? What else do you find inspiring about it when you're out there?
I don't think enough people appreciate what's around them. Mm-hmm. I see so many people that make themselves miserable, and forgive me, anyone who makes themselves miserable. But there's so many cool things to see if you're just looking. I walk on my trails and I see a snail, and I take 100 pictures. You guys see them because it's so cool. It's a little snail. Here's a little toad. Here's a weird looking flower growing, just the way the sun comes through the trees. I just really appreciate everything.
And it does help relax you too.
It really does. I think it does. It used to be being on the water till I got a little skin cancer, and then I thought, there goes that. Can't be riding around the boat in the bright sun. I don't like wearing sunscreen, so I know. That's why I had skin cancer. So I just wear a big hat and I walk my trails and the shaded trails, and where nobody can see me in my house coat and rubber boots, and so I think nature, when we do go to other places, I don't dress that way. We go to Cumberland Falls and Hocking Hills and what's the other place I go to a lot? I don't know. Lots of different places.
If I answer that, it'll be like I'm stalking you, so I'm not going to say. Well, I know you go to Pigeon Forge.
Pigeon Forge, thank you, yes. And the mountains there, I couldn't think of the name. I don't really enjoy parties. I enjoy the little family parties I have, but I don't enjoy, this organization, this RAGT, just gave last year over $44,000 to cancer-free kids, which we made here through raffles because you're all awesome. So they did a grant for cancer-free kids, gave a grant to RAGT called Lori Foster in honor of RAGT to help childhood cancers. And they invited me to a big reception. And I'm like,
you have to wear a dress.
Yeah, and probably some kind of nice shoes. And,
Well, you can get your toenails painted. That would maybe the perk.
I don't do that either. I told you I'm not a girly girl. So I very nicely declined because I greatly appreciate them and what they do. But I just want to, we facilitate the money going there, and then I don't necessarily need recognition. So they sent a very nice framed thing to me that I took pictures of to share. Not for me, but to again bring more recognition to cancer-free kids. And if they hear this, I appreciate them, but I don't want to go to any receptions, so sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, the baskets.
If they want to go walk a trail with me in my house.
Yeah, and your rubber boots.
I might be up for that.
And a bucket hat is a requirement.
Well, you know, too, I get up at like 4 a.m, and so receptions are in the evening. I don't want to go out in the evening.
Now, people might think you're a little, you know, if it's late at night, 9 o'clock, and you're ready for bed and you can't focus or say a complete sentence.
Yeah, it would be so incoherent.
Yeah, that
I mean, I'm
wouldn't
sort
be.
of incoherent now, but it would
No,
be really,
I totally understand you, and I'm
it would
stumbling.
be really
so.
bad at 9 o'clock at night.
So I guess I don't have any more
You all
questions.
done? That's good.
I did my whole list. And now, like, edit this part out, please.
No, we're leaving this in. This is fun. Thank you, Marcie. I appreciate it.
Well, thank
and
you,
now
Lori.
You're all red, so
I
can
know.
Zoom in. It's-
No, we're gonna do one of these where we're gonna like, here are the books. Make sure you buy, right?
So everybody, this is what life is about. Good friends, funny stuff. Enjoy it, please. Please enjoy your lives. Thank you, Marcie.
Well, no, thank you. This was a blast for me. So,
All right.
cut.